this point, even though it's an annual thing, but just all the pieces that had to be put in place. But yeah, but Joy, it's 3 years, right? And I normally, anytime as an artist doing projects in Trinidad and Tobago, normally 3 years to me is the third iteration, the third artifact is when you can see, okay, yeah, this thing has legs, this thing, there's a tree planted firmly in the ground, right? And so I'm glad that we're here and Season of Anansi is celebrating 3 years. Yeah, Joy. Right, so what is the Season of Anansi? So this was us in another room just over to the side there 3 years ago with our sponsors and the press and all of those kinds of things, launching the Season of Anansi, the idea of the Season of Anansi, right? So of course, we know Anansi, Caribbean hero, trickster, hero of the Caribbean, the smartest animal in the forest, spider. But of course, Anansi didn't come from us. Anansi is from the Ashanti, the Akan people of Ghana and West Africa. And like a lot of the civilizational things that ride at the center of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean is West African, brought to us through the horrors of plantation slavery, but yet still retained and yet still vital and yet still influencing us. And of course, Anansi would be an icon and a bedrock of resistance for the peoples of the Caribbean, but originally from the Akan Ashanti people of Ghana. So I've always been, in love with Anansi as a little kid. I learned to use a radio for the first time. Was hearing Errol Jones do his GBU, Government Broadcasting Unit, radio programs, and it was so powerful. He did all the voices. His voice is still the voice of Anansi for me. Errol Jones, the great Trinidad Theatre Workshop actor, one of the greatest actors in the world. Our James Earl Jones, or James Earl Jones is there. Errol Jones, and I learned at 4 years old how to use a radio, how to change stations and stuff, like how to this happens only on Saturday morning between this time and this time, 10 and 11. So all of those things climb up and stuff, use the knob and stuff, and then curl up in front of the speaker just to hear his voice. And as an adult, came up with this idea of a TV series and went into the archives and the library, read everything, listened to everything that they had of folklore, and started adapting the most popular Anansi story. And then in my mind I started seeing this female Anansi in a Maljo blue kit with these Adinkra symbols on her chest and a tunic. And I was like, who the hell is this? Like, is this Anansi girl? Is this Anansi wife? Is his daughter? And then I realized this was Anansi's grandmother. And I was being called upon to write the story of the lineage of Anansi, the story of his family, from his grandmother to her son, his father, and to Anansi himself. And that began this adventure, which has led to this point. Right, and where there's an entire festival celebrating Anansi, but also celebrating the wonder of folklore and the power of folklore in all our lives. Next. Right, so there are whole different parts to the Season of Anansi. This first year, we did a Children's Fun Day, right? And normally people do the Children's Fun Day and they go in a big park and all those kind of things and all those things. I wanted to give the Children's Fun Day to a community of children who normally who deserve it and who normally would not get that blind. And so I chose Kilimanjaro, Mokojambi's, and the yard, Dragon's Yard in Cocorit and Hardin Place in Cocorit. So the kids from all around Cocorit and stuff came with the children of Kilimanjaro, and they got bouncy castle and painted faces, and they get food and stuff, and the sponsors and stuff. You get food, you know, all kinds of different stuff, and a good time was had by all. And uh, at that fun day, we declared that we would nominate Glenn Dragon D'Souza for national award. And so said, so done, and he nominated, and he won that award, right? And he unfortunately passed on, but he was real happy. That gave him a lot of joy, you know, that it transformed him, and it transformed the troupe, and those kinds of things. So all of those things came out from that day. Next. And one of the main items in the season of Anansi is the national school tour. We have, and by we I mean me, and also myself and actors. There's normally 2 actors will do when we go out to do the larger ones. A dragon and Anansi, or another character and Anansi, or sometimes we take the Anansi out from the school population itself. So one of the girls will perform the Anansi character in the things. But I've performed in the last 3 years to literally thousands and thousands, probably tens of thousands of children all over Trinidad and Tobago, every corner of Trinidad and Tobago. And it's the most enjoyable part of the thing. The kids kind of keep you young and alive, you know. And so yeah, keep going. Right, we were able to stage part 2 of the new adventures of Anansi. That story of of Anansi's grandmother blossomed from that television script to a popular play, the most popular play in my theatre company, Rubadiri Folklore Theatre, and then into a movie script, which the screenplay got finals in one of Sundance's script writing competitions, and then graduated into a novel, which was dedicated to my father, and was able to dedicate it to him and read it to him on what turned out to be his deathbed. And so, as the first storyteller in my life, to give him the gift of me taking on that mantle and those kinds of things, you know, that was a blessing. And so Anansi, and then how I know like a work of art is finished and is complete is that I see the next thing I'm supposed to do. And in wrapping up the first play of Anansi and the 10 Dragons, the first book, I started to see an image of Anansi on stage, and lights were going on all around, and she was amid caution tape, and there was a chalk mark outline of an animal on the ground, and then the lights were going on, and then it went blaff, and total darkness. And when it came back on, she was surrounded by bats with crowns. And I just was seeing this in my, and I was like, what the hell is that? So that's when I knew. Up to that time, Anansi the 10 Dragons was a one-off production. I didn't know, and from that time I knew that I was writing a series. And I had to go in search of the story from where that image came from. And that's the image there. So it you know, as an artist, this is the satisfaction you get as an artist, is that the thing that comes into your head, first it became a book, and then I was able to put it on stage and replicate that, the image that came to me like 2 years before, you know. And it was a massive, epic production, you know, all these costumes and stuff. Rubadiri Folklore Theatre, we use elder master artisans, integrated with animation, character and landscape animation, set animation on stage, all combined in the realization of ancestral, contemporary and futurist folklore. Next. Was on a mission to London, and we were able to with my host there, Ansel Wong, who's a Trinidadian hero in London's one of the great culture people who spread Trinidad culture all over London, and whose mass band and that kind of stuff is one of the mainstays of the Notting Hill Carnival. And Ansel was the ambassador for Anansi and got the books in several schools and libraries all over the Greater London area. Next. Year 2. So year 1 was plenty, right? It set the kind of tenor of what we wanted to do and those kinds of things. But year 2, we said, let me just chill a little bit, breathe out, and because we're also working on the third Anansi book, which was taking 4 years to write and put together, and the amount of energy that took, and then also we were also working on a set of merchandise and on a number of different collaborations, and there are a number of other difficulties like some theft and other things that had happened that made that year complicated. So what we did is that we concentrated on the school tour and expanded the school tour. We were in dozens more schools, and yes, thousands and thousands of kids experience the joy, right? And the thing is, a lot of times it's the first time they're hearing about Anansi. The first time you're introducing them, the contemporary young people, it shows the lack in terms of our education system, but in terms of our popular culture and the way that we transmit our civilizational information, that we still very naive of how that happens, and we run the risk of just being destroyed as a people, because we're not sophisticated enough to understand all the different modes in which we pass on civilizational information. So, I like it. I'm just one of many doing this kind of work, but as I said, I'm in front of tens of thousands of kids, and it's just a small fraction that knows anything about our folkloric heritage in any kind of way. It's the first time they're hearing a lot of these things, and that shouldn't be. Next. And here we are, year 3, right? So this year we have a lot of exciting stuff prepared, a lot of crazy things. Thankfully, we have a lot of like-minded, crazy collaborators, and a couple crazy sponsors, and we're looking for a lot more crazy sponsors to come on board this incredible journey. Next. Right, so as I said, three is the thing. 3 is the number. 3 is the number of completion. It lets you know that yes, this thing is here. That's the Trinity, and to be able to complete the trilogy of books was really, really important to me. The whole of last year was devoted to just trying to finish book 3, and I'll tell you how important that was at the end of this. But to be able to do that and to bring out these 3 books, these are all illustrated novels. The first 2 took a year and a half. As I said, that one took 4 years. Well, it took 3 years, and it just took a next year just to get it in hand, right? That's a long story. But yeah, but now I feel like, right, it's on the way. This is a 7-part series. So there, and I'm telling myself I want to release the next 2 books simultaneously, right? Because of the nature of them. I like Netflix, and then release 3 things. Andor coming out next week, 3 issues, 3 episodes, and I like that idea, right? So I'm gonna try and do that for the next 2 books. Next, right? This brings us to this year and the crazy things that we planned. Like Partner in Craziness is at the back there, triggering everything. Joy Lookpat. Let's give a round of applause for Joy, long suffering Joy. Right? My designer, who's been with me on a number of different projects. Also at the back there, Kirk Langton. So these are people. He's media, but he's also my web designer, Swayo. is in the house, right? We have other collaborators who also be there related. So, right, April to May, starting this weekend at Metropolitan Bookstore on Saturday at 10 a.m. is the National Bookstore Reading Tour. April, June, we have the school storytelling tour begins. In May, Anansi, May 21st, Anansi and the 10 Dragons. The thing that started it all, that started the Woodbrook Folklore Theatre, celebrates 10 years. This is 10 years, 2015, right? I started the company after, I think that time it was 15 years of activism, because my dad's health was deteriorating and activism is a vow of poverty. So I needed to make an income to be able to save my dad's life, to prolong his life. And I work in 8 mediums, and I sat down with all 8 mediums and asked myself, okay, which one is the thing that I can engage in immediately? And I decided to create this theatre company, Woodbrook Folklore Theatre, where I could combine a lot of the things that was happening in the activism. I could work with a lot of the old master artisans who I think needed to be lifted up and utilized in other ways outside of the festivals and those kinds of things, but also because they're genius, and to integrate that with modernity, with all the top young animators and new media stuff and that kind of thing, which had never been done before. We, in fact, just some years before Chogam, had done the first animated characters and sets on a Trinidad and Tobago stage at Queen's Hall, in doing an Anansi story and the Ram Leela on stage. And I think that was also the first time the Ram Leela was also put on the Trinidad and Tobago stage as well. So that comes back for one day only, May 21st, we at Queen's Hall. 2 shows for schools early on in the day, and then the 7 p.m. gala for the adults. May 15th, this is really important to me, is the global rise of Afrofuturism, and part of that is also the rise of Anansi as a character globally, to be held here in IMAX, 2 floors, right? A multimedia new tech exhibition with a whole series of international participants and those kinds of things, and featuring the work of Vince Fraser, who is one of the top digital artists on planet Earth. His stuff is all over London, in all the major museums, as well as in boutiques and the entire buildings just wrapped around with his artwork, his digital artwork. He's going to be here. He's delivering the feature at the launch, and he's also going to be doing a workshop the following day. And June the 5th, we pay tribute. We're paying tribute to the TNT storytellers, the elders, Paul Keynes Douglas and Auntie Thea, because we must. Right? And let's give them a round of applause. It's like, I wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Paul Keynes Douglas. His craft, and he's been marginalized as at one point in time, he was, if not the central artist of the country, one of the central artists of the country that just powered the country through. Alright, and after that, we party. We have an after party at Black Box to lock up everything. Next, let's get into details. Right? As I said, I'm reading, and sometimes with guests at enough bookstores all over Trinidad. We're hoping to get more than 20 something, right? So we do like RIK in multiple locations, Nigel Can in multiple locations, but also a lot of the small niche bookstores. And why? Because this is devoted to an institution that I love, and I wouldn't exist, and a lot of us artists would not exist, and scholars wouldn't exist without it, which is the bookstore. And I'm committed. This is my give back to that institution. I know modernity and people in reading and people only on their screens and kids only on their screens and all those things. I think that there is a need, a necessity still for the tactile thing of the bookstore, the immersion in a space that is just celebrating the new things, the new leaves you know, with the new wisdom and the new things and the old things. And you know, the book as artifact, I still believe in those things, and this is my gift back. I want to help redynamize bookstores as destinations all over the country and work with those bookstores just to redynamize them and stuff. Because when I was coming up, I used to go to readings all the time in bookstores. You know, it's the first time I encountered a lot of different artists and authors and those kinds of things. And I want to see if we could try and get that to happen again, you know. And a lot of the bookstores are responding really warmly to it because they themselves have like kind of taken the bitter pill that, you know, this is it, you know, we are not long for this world kind of thing, you know. And this is, you know, when they get that thing, they get charged again. Next. Right, so these are Metropolitan this weekend, Blue Edition the following weekend, and Ishmael and Khan on Henry Street the weekend after that. And we'll be plugging all the different ones that are coming out next. 10 a.m. each time. Right, and of course, as I said, the school storytelling tour, self-explanatory. We're there. If you want your school, just give us a buzz, 797-0949. You know, like, you know, just give us a buzz and book your school. Next. Right, and as I said, 2 floors here. Come May the 15th, right? We have a gala launch event at which Vince will give the feature in the big cinema, and yeah, cocktails and all that kind of stuff. Next. Right? Why? Because there's a moment. I mean, it's about representation. You know, there's a moment happening right now in Black, Brown, and other ethnic representation for 500 years, which has been held at bay and marginalized in the West, and the technology and other things, and just the pure battle by pioneer artists has arrived at a point when there's a phenomenal diversity in the storytelling of Black and Brown and ethnic peoples, but especially I know I have ethical problems with AI and those kinds of things, but you can say that AI could be Black and Brown people's reparation in terms of because access to storytelling tools and icon making tools has been withheld from those peoples for 500 years. And not just withheld, I mean, you've been brutalized by stereotype, and you know, yourself being reproduced as a corpse in every other image that you see. And all of a sudden, you know, this technology has emerged where you can, all of a sudden, images of your divinity, your history, and all those kinds of things can be produced, you know, with a command. And it is it's led to an amazing revolution in terms of the kinds of imaging that has happened. But apart from that, battles have been happening within those hallowed halls to win the right and win the space to tell things. And so between Black Panther and Spider-Verse, and to a lesser extent, but still important, the Watchmen series and Lovecraft Country, those things kind of blew open people's minds to the possibilities of representation. And although Afrofuturism had existed before as a form, and it's like it's Black sci-fi, but I think what it really is the Black infinite. In the same way, any white person imagine themselves, they could imagine themselves a god, or anytime they appear, they go like, I am this, you know, whatever. But anytime a Black person is either a stereotype or a statistic, but how come he's a businessman? I'm no businessman, and he's supposed to be. Yeah, but there's a man who could fly in that same movie, so why? How come? So the Black man can't be a businessman, but there's a man who's flying. You know, it's like, you know, so like yeah. So the thing is that the apprehension of understanding that your possibilities are infinite. After 500 years of brutalities, so your image is an important moment. And so we're talking about that. There's going to be a massive international Zoom conference with like hundreds of practitioners from all over the world talking about the moment and the paradoxes as well as the possibilities of the moment. Next. And of course, as I said, Vince, this is some like images of some of Vince's. These are some of the kinds of things. You walk over London, you will see these things. I mean, his stuff is all over the world, in Dubai, in all cities and museums all over planet Earth. And he's been a leading digital artist. He's been an early adapter to every single visual arts medium. When Photoshop first came out, he was on that and stuff and things. He was an art director for major commercial ad companies and those kinds of things. He's had work commissioned by some of the biggest brands on the planet, and I sent out, because I am crazy, I just sent out stuff to like practitioners from all over the planet, right? Like, you know, people who like, it's like, who's you to send it? And that kind of stuff, and Vince, and some of them just started replying, you know, and stuff, and adding me, and I was like, okay, because I was half not expecting, you know, and Vince like called me up, is like, yo, this looks interesting, and I was like, you know, you know, like, what do you want to do? And so I started talking and that kind of thing. I say, hey, what now, Vince? I think I feel it coming, you know. He say, well, yeah. It's like, yeah, you know, and yeah, he coming. Like, you know, so next. Press play. So this is the kind of stuff he does, right? So what I was saying is that, you know, at one point in time, the ability to do that was completely outside of, you know, workaday, black and brown peoples and ethnic peoples. So the ability to do things like that and to represent yourself in those kinds of things, you would have to be a member of particular studios to get access to that technology and all those different kinds of things and those kinds of things. Now that technology is available. Of course, Vince is exceptional in his utilization of it, right? But you know, this is the kind of stuff that Vince does, and he's going to be here, and it'll be a privilege to have him. Next. And again, the reason why, representation, right? These images of First Peoples, the Banwari fossil, 7,000 years, Trinidad and Tobago, the oldest place in the fossil memory in this part of the world, the oldest settlement of human beings, right? We have to tell those stories, right? We have to tell those stories. We have to build permanent monuments, right? But we have to tell living stories, generation to generation, to be able to sustain the integrity of the civilization and a civilization of integrity. Next. Right. But it's not all about the foreigners and all those other kinds of things. It's about the genius youths and the geniuses who are here on the floor doing the work. And so the Trinidad and Tobago part of, well, the exhibition is anchored by a series 3 locals thus far, right? And one of them is Jean Benoit, also called Normal, who's in the back there. Jean, I don't know if you want to come and say something real quick to people.
Sure.
I know you're real shy, right? But Jean is one of, if not the top Caribbean AI and digital artists and new media artists, pushing the boundaries at all things I mean, I always knew were wrong, but really got to know him when he put on an exhibition that with, you know, all the Oculus headsets and all the different stuff and fully immersive stuff, just like with Vince's rooms. almost like that replicated there, but with our, you know, with our budgets and that kind of stuff. But he did it, you know, and this was years ago. And I was like, okay, yeah, this guy is pushing the boundaries of those things, you know, like, and inside the worlds that he was creating inside of those sets and those things were incredible. I mean, way past a lot of the things that were you know, going on at the time. So, Noel, I don't know if you want to talk about what people can expect and what.
Well,
So let's get a round of applause to.
This majority of this stuff here was from earlier works of mine, which was probably about 2 to 3 years ago. This was actually first set of integration with my traditional 3D animation with the use of artificial intelligence models and evolving the work into different, you know, a different platform in general. So I actually have a background in digital video editing and filmmaking. So I tend to use my artistic style in conjunction with filmmaking techniques. So I actually had an exhibition that was done in the form of a feature experimental film, and this was actually the precursor to my newest exhibition, which would involve a collection of probably work from the past 5 years of mine, using all of the different techniques that I use and mediums to create artwork and animation, stuff like that. So for this particular exhibition, I'm trying to highlight not just the carnival culture and our local iconography and things like that, but also to take it to an almost international space, utilizing not just traditional Caribbean artwork and techniques and stuff like that, but to encompass, you know, all of the new different diversity that there is available to us as artists. So technically, for the majority of it, I would actually have a bunch of brand new work that was never unveiled before that will be shown for this summit. Right, but that's as much as I can say.
Yeah, right. Thanks so much. And we're working on a really exciting NFT project, which will be unveiled at the launch of the thing, an international NFT. Very, 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 very important NFT. Right. Right, James Hackett. So James, fashion designer, printmaker, graphic artist, also adapting in the use of AI to work on his modeling and those kinds of things, but a graphic artist beyond that as well. James was on his way here and something came up. He's a professor at UTT and he had to reverse and head to the university to work out something. Right, but James's work will be featured, one of the sets of work, and again, it will be new things that he has not ever put out before. He's been working on, to my prodding, right? On some, for 20 something years, he has nursed this new folklore, new Trinidad folklore, kind of futurist interpretations of Trinidad and Tobago folklore in, you know, using contemporary landscapes as jump offs and those kinds of things, and a lot of that stuff will be outputted. Next, this guy, right? Right, so Richard Chasu Ahong, storied, award-winning Trinidad and Tobago music composer. You know, plenty of these songs and the road marches and all the other things that you jump up with. This is the guy we are behind a lot of that music. But he's also somebody who's been working with VR technology, virtual reality technology, building some really, really, really stunning things inside the VR world. But all rooted because he's a soca man, he's a musician, he's, you know, and that kind of thing. I don't know if you want to tell them or you want to surprise them when it comes, but Chasu, because he didn't come and say something now.
Good day, everyone. Well, as he said, I'm a musician first, musician, artist, and I believe that we as a people, Trinidad and Tobago, have a story to tell. You know, over the years, I've seen a lot of, as he was saying before, a lot of the stories and the things that we grew up on has been lost. Hence the reason why we have a generation now of people who don't already know who we are. And so I think it's very, very important of what he's doing and what we are doing as a collective to bring back and teach the young kids and teach the people of Trinidad and Tobago who we really are, which is extremely special people. Yes. Extremely special. Yeah. You know, just the art alone, the art, again to as well, I'm doing a series as well called The Art of Carnival. You know, most people pay attention and governments pay attention to the festival part of it. The most marketable thing is the art behind it. The wire bending, the creations of the costumes, the creation of the music, the whole cultural background, which I believe is very sellable to the rest of the world. You know, I actually went to a Netflix conference, and one of the things that they said about Caribbean people, believe it or not, is that we have to become more creators and less consumers because we have a story to tell. You know, something that we can relate to.
They want our stories.
They want our stories. You know.
They say.
So that's why I kind of got into this basically. I was always a technology buff. I was like technology from a very young age. That's basically how I became popular in music, because I was one of the first people to do use computers with music, and that gave me the edge. Not that I'm the greatest musician, but the combination of both actually got me quicker and faster to where I wanted to be. And over the years, I've started doing videos because of music videos, started to create them, then got into virtual production, which then took me to VR, to AR, and to now where I combine all the arts that video editing, and again VR, AR, and music, because I think combined gives me a unique place and puts us in a unique place because I have an understanding of all aspects of the art. So when I spoke to him maybe a couple of years ago, just by chance, we just happened to meet at a meeting and so forth, and heard his vision and my vision, which is very, very interesting and Tobago. And now hearing this guy here now, who I've never met before, I didn't even know his work, to be honest. And I'm very impressed just watching what you have done. You know, to have the same vision, you know, and the same purpose, because I believe purpose and vision is very important in actually going forward. So I look forward to this project and projects to come, and working along with people with the same mindset and the same goals.
So look out for his stuff when you put on the virtual headsets, and he'll be debuting some funky again, never seen before things and that kind of stuff. So we appreciate you a lot, man.
Again, sorry for my tardiness today. I had a meeting before.
No problem.
I kind of rushed. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
All right. So again, Richard Charles, home next, and of course we're gonna have the workshop with Vince, right? So that you have to pay to get to that, right? You know. But the artists have a much lower rate than the corporates, right? So corporate you have to, you know, but the artists will have an entry level, right? Yeah, next. Right, again, representation next. Right, so it's going to be a new media exhibition, right? It's going to be headsets and screens and all this kind of stuff, but it's also going to be tactile. It's also going to be, you know, canvas and vinyl and board and, you know, things, you know, it's a combination of the ancient and the artisan and the modern and the futurist, right? But that's what the space is going to be. And again, you know, IMAX has been incredible partners throughout the years to a lot of the different things that we've done, Ingrid and Brian, and this incredible space that they've created, which is kind of been a futurist space inside here, always open to local involvement and local people and stakeholders utilizing the space in that kind of way. So again, hats off to Scarf. Yeah, next. Right, and another subtext of sub part of that exhibition is the global rise of Anansi, right? So when I first started doing Anansi representation and that kind of stuff, there were not many. You could have counted in one hand or two hands the amount of people doing Anansi stuff globally. You know, one person, that set of people doing things in Jamaica, why one person thing, the next person in, you know, stuff, and of course in Ghana, that's happening on the ground. But in the last decade, I mean, Anansi has just exploded, you know, and so of course, you know, a lot of the youths and stuff will know through Neil Damon, the Anansi boys, you know, coming out of the American Gods and all that stuff and those kind of things. But there are all kinds of people now exploring the Anansi character in all kinds of different forms and all kinds of different kinds of narratives, right? So I think it's a moment, and it's an important moment, and because I remember Anansi, the greatest story of the trickster, I think, in human history is the story where Anansi conquers, where he defeats the bees, snake, and tiger, and where he wins the right from Sky God to be the custodian of all the stories on planet Earth. And I think that that moment may be coming, and I think Afrofuturism is its bridge to that place, and Anansi is its muse, and you know, it is, the moment is arriving, because we are mankind, we are the storytelling animal. That's what makes us different from the other animals, you know, is that we create narrative, we create symbol and narrative, and which is why withholding the right of storytelling from a people is a violence, it is a genocidal act, it is an extreme form of violence, and the reclamation of that right to storytell, to tell the 7 stories, the immortal 7 stories that are told again and again and again in different forms, is a revolutionary act, but it's just a profoundly human act, and that's what we're celebrating. Next. And we're gonna have in this space the Anansi pop-up shop, right? Plug, plug, plug. It's I mean, the whole of last year was spent trying to get the book done, but also stumbling into collaborations with a number of different people. The other person whose work is going to be featured in the local end is Randall Watley, an incredible motion graphic artist who I started to collaborate with. He just fell in love with my work and asked, he said, let me illustrate your black and white drawings from your books and that kind of stuff. I said, well, okay, let's see where it goes. And that's where it goes. This is not AI, this is him painting, right? He's an incredible painter and digital painter. And his work needs to be seen far and wide. Your work, your hero is not a hero until it have a doll, right? And so I mean, I know that since I'm a kid, it's like, you know, it's like you know, your hero ain't saying nothing until the hero have a doll, right? And I knew I'd crossed the boundary when I was finally able to get the doll, the Anansi plush doll, right? Is here, and she's been very popular. You know, I remember sitting down and somebody's coming to pick up their stuff, and I'm sitting down in Starbucks, and one of a child's mother wants to buy one of the books. You know, she says she wants to buy one of the books. This is a white family and that kind of stuff, right? And the little blonde girl picks up the Anansi doll and begins to play with her for the whole time when the whole conversation was where I think she has the doll and she's playing with the doll. And just watching that interaction, one, I knew that the doll works as a doll, right? But also it flies in the face of all the received crap that we, you know, things in terms of, you know, who should be represented and why certain people are not represented because other people, well, you know, they didn't want to. This girl just immediately started having adventures with the Anansi doll. She saw herself in the doll, And to me, that's the magic, first of childhood, you know, before the corruption gets in. But, you know, the phenomenon of storytelling through all these different artifacts, toys and dolls. Right, so there are Anansi t-shirts, there are Anansi postcards, there are Anansi and the books and the plush doll and all different prints and all kinds of things. They'll all be here in the pop-up shop, which lasts for 3 weeks here at IMAX during the exhibition. Next, schools are invited, people are invited and those kinds of things. It's free to attend. Right, and as I said, 10 years, Anansi and the 10 Dragons at Queen's Hall, 1 day only, May 21st, Wednesday, May the 21st. You better get your things. We have online tickets at Island e-tickets. You can get your tickets, they're available now. You have tiered stuff so children can get cheap tickets, and teens and seniors, and then adults, and then you have your VIP tickets, right? So all these different tiers of tickets, they're all available, and then we'll release all the ticket outlets soon, right? And of course 797-0949 for, Next, right? So you know, this is images from different ones over the years, because we did, the thing is about the Anansi and the 10 Dragons is that we did all kinds of different plays adapted from folklore as well as other stories and stuff. But there was something about this story that people just kept coming back, like the schools, it's like, you're gonna do that one again with the dragons, but you all saw that like twice. You know, it's like, you know, it's like, you know, yeah, but you know, that's, and started to know like something about this character, about her, this character that came to me in this vision. You know, just a compelling, this compelling character, you know, and she becomes, she's a little girl who's stumbling into her power, and you know, and she's had this, you know, and I'm just telling her story, and like, you know, as the images come, and I'm following where she's leading. And at first I said it was a one-off, but it's now blossomed into a 21-part series, of which the first seven books are her story. Next. Right, and yeah, it's this tribute to the storytellers. We're gonna pay it's tribute to 3 generations of storytellers, right? We'll reveal the names of some of the others soon, or the younger ones soon, but what's really important are the elders, you know? And then the in-betweener is Santana, right? And so we're tracking the evolution of Anansi, the Anansi energy and vibe through generations of storytelling to the present. But we want to anchor it, you know, with genius of Paul and the genius of Auntie Thea, right? And Auntie Thea, who's kept the traditional storytelling alive, and who's gone back to the original Ghanaian Akan Ashanti stories and West African and other native stories and stuff, and tells those stories from those first generation texts and those kinds of things, right? And that devotion to pure storytelling in its original form, and the stories in their purity, you know, and then all the innovations of Paul Keynes, who was doing posters and books and tapes and videos and stuff long before anybody else was doing multimedia and that kind of stuff. We knew him as that, and shows in Little Carib and all those other kinds of things and stuff. And he was on the radio, and he's constantly, he was in every single medium that was available, you know, and that impressive acuity to understand, you know, what it took to take the word into all the places that the word needed to go, you know. So we want to pay tribute to them, and be creating, hopefully we have it ready in time, a special new kind of our version of an Oscar or Tony or whatever. Right, next. And yeah, after that is party! Right, so you know what I mean? So right after that, we walk down or drive down to the black box, and we partying. I mean, that is the thing rap, you know what I mean? So we go and enjoy ourselves. Even though it's supposed to be a black tie event, you could pelt your shorts and your thing, not your pants and your you know. But you know, and we're gonna party at the Black Box and enjoy ourselves and celebrate, you know. Hopefully a successful like festival, right? Corporate, we need more y'all on board, right? So yeah, next. Yeah, so I mean, a lot has happened so far. We have a whole set of collaborators on board and that kind of thing. Let's give them all a round of applause. All those who are here, who've come on board so far. We still have to go. We still have things to go in home. Joy. You know. Yeah. So this is serious. This is the hardcore serious thing, you know. Last year's first year's festival was dedicated to Mark Akini Nottingham, who was a founding member of the YBN Folklore Theatre, you know, from Black Lyrics, the group Black Lyrics and stuff, who died of stroke or / heart attack. Young, brilliant, young man, and that first festival was there. This festival is dedicated to two deceased geniuses. The first is Glenn Dragons, who's the founder of Kilimanjaro Mokojambis, the man who resurrected the Mokojambi tradition here in Trinidad and Tobago in our carnival, and you could say almost on planet Earth. He revitalized that tradition. There were no Mokojambis on the road anymore. It was effectively a dead tradition, like how a lot of the traditional masquerades have disappeared. And all of us used to be sitting around in labs trying to figure out how to bring them back, how to bring back the peregrinae, and Dragon showed us the way. Dragon built the temple and became high priest and built the temple and they would come. And he built a temple and in Cocorite, in the ghetto in Harden Place. And it started with some of his family and some of the boys in the ghetto who was on stripping or something, and he pulled them in and that kind of thing. And then all the gang boys and all the boys on this thing came in the yard and started to walk stilts. Then all the boys and stuff and girls from all the ghettos from all over the Trinidad and Tobago cross lines and find themselves in Cocorite in Harden Place to walk stilts. Then all the children from Lange Park and Federation Park and Woodward Park and stuff cross lines to find themselves in Cocorite to walk stilts. And then people from Australia, London, Europe, Canada, New York, all over America find themselves in Cocorite to walk stilts. That troupe celebrates 35 years this year and has graduated over 4,000 people in the back of Cocorite in Harden Place with little to no state or private sector support. That man, probably one of the greatest brand ambassadors Trinidad and Tobago has ever had. 3 Sesame Street features, New York Times, National Geographic, you name things, ABC, all kinds of stuff. Him. The book on his troupe and him by Stephen Falk, Mokojambis, Dancing Spirits, I think it's Dancing Spirits of Trinidad and Tobago. That hardcover coffee table book, I've seen pictures of it on Oprah and on Brad Pitt and all kinds of celebrities. It's in people's libraries all over the planet. It is like a staple for creatives all over the planet. That man, right, remained humble and grassroots as they come, a warrior for culture and those things, right? You know, and to the end, his last thing was to try and bring together 1,000 Mokojambis for the world record. He passed on before he could have done that, and we want to continue and do that and accomplish that this year in his name. And so we're working with Kilimanjaro and the greater Mokojambi community of Trinidad and Tobago. But this festival is dedicated to Dragon. And this guy here they probably wouldn't have no third season of Anansi Festival, and it definitely probably would have had no third New Adventures of Anansi book if it wasn't for Anderson Mitchell. Anderson actually was the animator who did the first animation for stage, character animation for stage, all those years ago, and was Anansi. Those stories and those kinds of things in which he did the animation for the Rambler and those things. To put it on stage, he remained as the resident lead animator for YBN Folklore Theatre for throughout the entire 10 years of our existence. And when I was having real problems as an artist with my book for the whole of last year, and they just could not bear going through their own personal traumas, and they just could not finish the book, and then they refused to give us the artwork back and all that kind of stuff, and we were like, what? You know, and Anderson said, this is what I do, you know, just, you know, I said, but I don't have the artwork, Anderson, all I have. And because we get back errors every time we send new errors and all kinds of stuff, all we have is this PDF. And he said, okay, let me see if we could go into the PDF, because he had 4 pages left to edit. And that was taking 3 months. And we had a deadline from the printers. If you don't get the thing now, you ain't getting your book until February, March. Right? And it's like October. And this is an entire year since the June of the previous year. You know? And so Anderson there with international guys trying to get into the PDF, trying to see what they could do, whatever. Finally the day came when Anderson said, Rubadiri, there's no way we could do this. We have to build over the book from scratch. I lost it. I had to be restrained that day. I normally I'm the person restraining. So I was like, I know, we don't do that. We don't go down that way and that kind of stuff and thing. Call back the assassins. You know, like, it was like, well, but normally I was the one that people was doing that too. Like, no! You know, like, it was like, you know what I mean? And I had to do therapy. I'm telling you, I had to do therapy. I had to take myself all the way back down. And I came back out of the thing. I was like, okay. Anderson says, don't worry. The deadline is next week, Tuesday, they tell us. I will finish it. Anderson, like, the same day he made that declaration, we had been fighting. Anderson was a kidney patient and a lot of problems. And we had been fighting to get an organ for him and trying to raise the money and all that kind of stuff. His doctor comes back into the country and he finally gets his checkup and his results. And the doctor tells him, sit down. See, if you don't get that organ in the next 2 months and don't raise that balance of $400,000, don't bother. Right? Make your peace with your family and your friends. Enjoy the time that you have. But don't bother. Anderson calls me from the doctor's office to tell me, see, Anderson, forget about all what we have to do and that kind of stuff. Go and clear your head. Let me rally the team, because we have to get this money. We will get the money. We will, you know. Let me deal with that. And say, nah. Anderson said, nah. We're doing this. Anderson proceeds to complete the book in 3 days. He builds back the book from scratch in 3 days. And we meet the deadline. We put Anderson in the ground about 3 weeks ago. He spent the last months of his life battling not for himself, but battling for kidney patients throughout Trinidad and Tobago, trying to change government policy in terms of the deceased donor programs and to rehabilitate the all the things related to kidney donations, the cleaning of your blood, all of those programs which are deficient in a number of different ways. The overpricing of the at private clinics and that kind of stuff, $1,000 to $2,000 for every single. And when you need 3 a week, specifically these are death sentences for working class people to have kidney problems. And because of Trinidad and Tobago, diabetes and hypertension leads to kidney failure. And those are 2 of our 3 greatest killers, and increasing geometrically. And Anderson made that his campaign and gave it a face. He vlogged about it every single day. This is what I'm doing. This is what's happening to me. This is what's happening to my body. You know, this is what, and you know, like people from all, and he was inspiring patients and other people, you know, group came together and stuff with all the stakeholders, all the different kidney patients and that kind of stuff. And, you know, so somebody else's campaigns that we're going to continue battling for, you know, and well, especially for us here, YBN Folklore Theatre Passion Film Publishing Limited, we owe Anderson a lot. And so this festival is dedicated to these 2 incredible, beautiful people, and we do this work in their name. Next. These are some of Randall's incredible work at the top there. And yeah, and again, we could not do the work without sponsors, right? Republic Bank and NFM, Lotus Brand have been sponsors for the 3 years of the festival thus far, as well as Cinema One IMAX. They have been with us throughout the entire adventure of this, hopefully into the future. And we have a lot of different conversations going on, and so hopefully we could expand that. Hopefully after the next thing people brand that to get real small, because underneath that have to be cluttered up with brands and those kinds of things, right? But yeah, we couldn't do these things without the help of patrons, you know, Bread and Brand again for producing this room, those kinds of things, for all the collaborators, my partners who work on these things, and those who are the stakeholder partners, the artistic partners and stuff who do this. Next. Right? That's it. Hug up tight. Right? You know, that's a husband by the way. Kind of interracial, interspecies. Yeah. But yeah, so that's what's all about. Season of Anansi 2025. My name is Rubadiri Victor. Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening and being here. And over and out. Any questions, anything for this thing? So thanks a lot, thanks a lot, thanks a lot.